Welcome back, everybody. I am Ben Parker. That's Shane Ratliff, and this is the Box Score Network. So we really appreciate you being a part of this. We have covered draft prospects literally since the last draft ended, and we did it all during the summer. We did it all through the fall, and we're going to keep it up. And Keldric Faulk is one of those guys. This is kind of a conjoined effort between us and Pro Football Enterprises. So again, we're sister tight networks. A lot of the defensive prospects will end up here on Box Score. Most of the offensive prospects will end up over on Pro Football Enterprises. So check them out. Both YouTube channels, very similar prospect output there in terms of the design. But again, offense, defense is largely the split. Keldric Faulk, defensive end from Auburn, is our subject tonight. He is listed as 6'6" on most of the sites I saw. 285 as most of the sites I saw. Again, height, weight, fluid. We'll see what actually comes out of that come draft time. I don't usually post defensive players' numbers. I think they tell so little of the actual story. I just don't do it. I did list the sacks here for Falk just so people could see. He had a very explosive 11 sacks in 2024. That went down by a lot in 25. I don't think that's any real surprise, but he did still have five. So that's something there. And that's something more than some of the prospects that we've liked the past couple of years who's just didn't even have the five sacks to point to. So I just wanted to set that out there again. That tells so little of the story of a defensive player. I don't know if you just like to get it out there. But Shane, welcome in tonight as always, man. Go ahead and get us started on Keldric Faulk.
Well, I think the key point on this, Ben, is you already mentioned the height weight. I mean, he really fits the prototype that you're looking for now. Almost 300 pounds, 6'6", has a
Yeah,
great motor,
yeah.
great start and stop for somebody as big as he is. Also, when you see him and the way he plays, I don't think 288 pounds jumps right into your mind. You had him at
No.
285. The Auburn article I was reading had him at 288. So,
Hmm.
like you said, kind of fluid.
Yeah.
I thought that this year he showed great alignment versatility. They played him across the defensive line, a bunch of different positions.
Yes.
I think it didn't necessarily help his sack numbers, like you mentioned, but it showed that he could function on the inside, he can function on the outside. You could put him way on the outside on a nine technique. You could put him inside eye. Um, I thought he had a great start stop for 288 pounds. Um, if you go back and watch the tape from early in his career, I think he's leaps and bounds better with his hand placement and his hand fighting. Something I thought was weak last year, even though he had more sacks, he got even better with it this year. I think he's a violent and great run defender, which you don't always see for a lot of these guys when you're talking, in the 11th sack range. There's not a
Right.
lot of those guys that are looking to hit a guard and take on a fullback, do anything like that. I thought he did a great job of that. Um, Again, high motor. Some of the weaknesses, which I are surprised with kind of what I put with his pluses, his get off at sometimes is not great. I don't think he's off the ball real fast. Um, his pass rush moves, he has very few counters. Once you've figured out what he's bringing your direction, there's not a lot that he's going to change up. Um, I think the thing that I saw more this year than last year, which I think really does key into why he had less sacks, he did not do a great job of shedding offensive linemen. He let guys get into him, especially guards. I mean, some of the games where he didn't have great games, he's playing against outstanding offensive lines. You know, if Caden
Yeah.
Proctor blocks you, he blocked everybody. He blocked out the sun. So, I mean, I'm not going to knock you for not getting, after it versus Alabama. But I think there are some things enough to where I saw this year where I would question how much the decline in sacks is because as you show that you can get those sacks, yes, teams are going to game plan better. But I also saw some times where I just thought, everything I've seen, what I've heard, there's some times where he just doesn't get to the point. He leaves some tackles for losses. He leaves some sacks out there on the field that I think if he gets those, these numbers look even better and he positions himself even higher in the draft.
Listen, you and I are seeing this guy almost exactly the same. Either I copied your notes or you copied mine because a lot of it's verbatim here. I thought you made excellent points on a couple things I wasn't even planning to bring out. You said the hand fighting, hand placement was better in 25 than 24. I didn't watch enough 24 tape to pick up on that, so that's very good. And then I've got a couple things you said that I'm going to say it a different way, but it's the same thing, different words. You mentioned him not having as many counter moves and not shedding blocks as much once guys kind of get into him and get on him, right? I am going to bring that up in a different way, but I thought that was excellent work right there. So here we go. My notes here are a little bit sloppy tonight, but here we go. He moves like a much smaller, lighter guy. You already said that. He does not look this big as far as how he moves, but size-wise, he looks this big. Fluid, smooth, runs so well. I mean, just very, I love it. Constantly moves back and forth between defensive tackle and defensive end. You mentioned the versatility already. I really like that. I like that he can do that and looked good at both spots doing it. He wasn't getting run over at his secondary spot. He looked good in both spots. Gets double teamed a lot. Teams are obviously worried about him. That did contribute to some of the sack slippage as opposed to going up, but hey, we're used to that. When you show off 2 years away from the draft, your final year before the draft, teams are going to figure out how to shut you down as best they can. They are really going to try to limit that. So no surprise, but lots of double teams. Those double teams are largely effective. I didn't see him splitting as many of those as
Mm.
I wanted in 25. I really didn't. It's not that he cannot. I just didn't see him doing as much of that as I wanted. He's fantastic at getting pressure on the quarterback, both from defensive end and defensive tackle, but he's better off the edge. His true, pure spot is over on the edge, just the hand fighting, the speed off the edge, the smooth acceleration. It's all there to get pressure on the quarterback. It's rich, it's pure. I love it. That's what's got people talking about him so high, is that ability to get to the quarterback off the edge. It's beautiful. He can do that from defensive tackle to some degree, but it's not the same. It's just not the same kind of effectiveness. Does Did not have a quick start off the line in 24, but this was better in 25. You already mentioned that. He does not have a great get off. He doesn't start quick. I don't know why. Some guys just don't. It was better in 25, which is encouraging. Still wasn't great. It just was better than it was in 24. So I like that he worked on it. Um, he's very fast, shows a variety of moves. Slaps. I saw slaps, spins. Good with both hands and feet working together, but again, not the counters, like you said. Didn't see the counter moves. Once guys get into him, it's not good. Has plenty of strength and plenty of power, but that is not his primary game. He is not the
Hmm.
bully who makes a living off of bull rushing. And for a guy his size, you might would expect a little bit more. That's just not him. It's not that he cannot bull rush. You will see it from time to time. That's not his main game. His main game is the speed off the edge or breaking through and winning the hand fight up the middle and then speed pushing through. Okay, so again, don't look for him to be a physically dominant guy. It's just not yet the way he's wired. Um, I thought he was much better at stopping the run from defensive tackle.
Hmm.
I don't know why. Frequently sheds blocks to swallow up running backs from defensive tackle. Didn't see that as much at defensive end. Maybe it's just a mindset, right? Maybe at end he's thinking QB only, but from defensive tackle he's thinking run game first. Maybe it's just a mentality. I don't know, but I thought he was better at stopping the run from defensive tackle. You already mentioned that he was playing a lot of defensive tackle this year. His highlights are amazing. Absolutely amazing. If you only watched his highlights, I could understand him getting drafted top three, top four. The highlights are that good. Really love the highlights. But there are times when his game goes quiet. You mentioned guys getting into him. I wonder if he doesn't get tired too. I noticed sometimes on the back end of drives or in second and third quarters, sometimes he'd be pulled off the field, and I would be like, well, why? That's probably your best, quarterback pressure guy. You could use him in that Texas A&M game. You could use him in that Alabama game, and there he is off the field for a handful of plays. So I wonder if he's not getting worn down a little bit. We mention that all the time with some of these guys here. So, maybe that's something he needs to work on. I don't know. But I did see that the game goes quiet sometimes. While he's quick off the edge, he's not going to chase down a lot of running backs on the backside. Nor will he make a lot of plays out in the flat. So this is something I always look for. The edges that tend to be the quicker type, and he's not the 240-pound guy who's flying off the edge and can't hold up against the run. He holds up against the run. But I always look to see, can they chase down the running backs from behind? He rarely does that. He just doesn't have that kind of speed. Also out there in the flats, the boundaries, the screen games and the jet sweeps, not going to make a lot of plays out there. He's just not, while speed is his game, he's just not got that top end speed to go chase down those guys. So don't look for a lot of that screen busting or jet sweep busting from him. Almost done here. There's times he's a dominant force. Looks absolutely unstoppable sometimes. Um, Other times it just kind of disappears. If a single player is blocking him, they've often got a tight inside hold on him, but the refs aren't going to call it, which is fine. That's the way the game of football is played. If you can get that inside hold, but again, you mentioned it, him struggling to shed blocks, right? Once they're up into him and they've got that inside hold, which usually you get by with, he hasn't yet shown that he can consistently get off of that. So I really like him. I top 10 like him is how much I like him. But I saw enough disappearing at times, inconsistencies to where if people consider him a little risky, I'm okay with him dropping out of the top 10 to the top 15, 16 kind of an area. Is kind of where I'm at. So, Shane, that's a lot right there. Back to you, man. Anything you want to hit?
So a couple of points that you hit on, Ben. So I think you mentioned the, possible getting tired as the game goes on. So this is one of the things where I think his coaches didn't do him any favors.
Okay.
By changing him so often from the DT to the outside spot at defensive end, I think especially against Alabama, they needed him so much to protect against the run. They
Mm-hmm.
played him at defensive tackle, and then he got beaten up a couple times, did not get loose off a double team, had worked all his energy to do that, and then it gets to like 3rd and 5, and he's standing over next to the defensive coordinator, and Alabama goes, "Not a problem. We don't have to worry about a pass rush. This is what we're gonna
Right.
do." Where
Right.
like his versatility is also his calling card, but when you don't get to, like we talked about, like Bailey at Texas Tech, he's not he doesn't care if you run the ball in his direction. That's somebody else's job. He's just going to hit the quarterback.
Right.
That's not what Kendrick Faulk does.
Yeah.
The way he plays, if you could really set this up, you would want one of those speed rush guys like you talked about, Ben, on the opposite side of him,
Right.
where everything got funneled back to Kendrick
Mm-hmm.
Faulks,
Yes.
because he's going to hold up against the run. He's going to take an okay angle, and he's going to be able to stop plays. I think a lot of times when you were talking about like where he's not great in the flats and why he was a better run defender inside than he was outside, the one thing I don't think he does a great job is taking angles.
Okay.
I don't think it's a fluidity thing, because when you see him make some of the moves on
Mm-hmm.
pass rush, you go, well, he's got pretty good bend. I don't think it's
Right.
that. I
Right.
think there's a part of having to play those two positions where he doesn't diagnose as well as somebody that got to just stick on the outside or only play defensive tackle. Um, I think that's where he kind of loses himself in space because of that. But the other thing you hit on, Ben, I mean, this guy is a prototype guy. I
Yep.
mean, he's a Bruce Feldman freaks list, over a 700-pound squat,
Mm.
6 foot
Wow.
six, like we said, anywhere from like 284 to 290, depending on where you're reading about him. I think he's going to have outstanding numbers uh, at the combine. But the thing for him is he's going to have those outstanding numbers, and then the scouts are going to go back and watch him in the games, and they're going to go, he disappeared against this guy. He disappeared
Right.
against this guy.
Right.
Yeah, didn't really see him there. Auburn had a pretty good defense around him.
Hmm.
Maybe how much is him? How much is something else? And like we said, that's the tough thing once you get in the draft. If you
Yeah.
play well, you're going to get picked apart. Sometimes it's better to have an underwhelming season and then pop at the end of the year and have a great combine, and then they're like, "Oh no, he's great, he's great." We're just not going to
Right.
pay attention to the film we watched. Um, like you said, I think size, ability. You look at him high. I think he's going to drop in the draft. I think this is a guy that people are going to go back and watch film, and he's going to have to prove himself again in the NFL. Um, it's extremely odd to say that someone who's 6'6" and 285 is a tweener,
Right.
but
He is.
I mean, now on the outside, you're either super small and you fly,
Hmm.
or you have to be like his size. Now, as a DT, they're all 6'6". They're all 300 plus pounds. There's just like Jordan Davis is coming out of Georgia every single year. So I don't know what team, depending on where he is, he's going to fit. I would definitely see him. Like, I think he'd be a great fit for Denver Broncos, where you can have some guys that really come with heat off the edge, and where you could put him in a package where you also played him at defensive tackle next to one of those guys. I think that makes him real dangerous. I think, again, if you can play him on the weak side and put a real pass rusher on the opposite side, I think he fits in well there. My worry for them is that he's going to be picked up by somebody like the Miami Dolphins, and they're not going to have anybody else around to help him, and he's going to get double teamed constantly.
Right. Yeah, you make a couple of really good points there. I I really like Falk, but there's enough times where it's disappearing slash inconsistent for whatever reason that it does give me pause on just stamping him as a top five, top 10 guy. Even though I'm still considering him top 8 to 15-ish, I think is about where I'm at right now. I okay. It is tough comparing these guys, okay? Because on the one hand, you've got the Baileys and the Cassius Howells of the world, and there's a third guy who's just right in that same R. Mason Thomas, right? Those guys who, boy, they just flash, 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 flash off the edge. They got no other responsibilities, really. If you have them other responsibilities, they haven't really shown that they can handle them yet. Keldric Faulk, though, here is showing the really talented edge work, and yet, while the versatility you said is his calling card, it also limits his effectiveness
Mm-hmm.
too. So it's like, well, dang it, we know he can be on the field for every down as far as his abilities go, but how effective? I think I would really love to see him keep one position for about 80% of the time, whichever that is. For me, it would probably be big edge. And then the other 20% of the time, roll over into the secondary position. That way, it's not quite so much back and forth for him. He can focus more on doing one job really well, and then in certain situations, he moves over either to defensive tackle or to edge, whatever whatever that primary position is. I would love to see him. It's almost like the Travis Hunter effect, right? Where it's
Mm-hmm.
you really want him 80% on offense or 80% on defense. You don't want him 50-50. Even though I know Falk is versatile, I really don't want him 50-50 defensive tackle and defensive end. I want him playing one spot for the majority of the time, shifting over when I need him to. So that's Keldric Faulk. Final thoughts, Shane, on Keldric here.
Like I said, I think combine he's going to have some outstanding numbers,
Yeah, yeah,
and I think he'll demonstrate. The last bit that you mentioned right there, Ben, I think it's tough now. Back, 10, 15 years to say that you were good at everything
yeah.
would have been something to hang your hat on. Now in the NFL, if you don't have one dynamic trait,
Mm-hmm.
I think that makes it tough for you. Like you said, you can have somebody like Bailey at Texas Tech. I don't think he even knows what else he's supposed to do other than run after the quarterback.
I think
It's
so.
like a water boy. It's a Bobby Boucher, where you're just hitting your ears and running off the outside. With Keldric Faulk, he's asked to do everything.
He
Now,
is. Yeah.
it's great that he did that, but it also shows you that Auburn didn't have somebody better than him to
Right.
play in either of those positions where you could just give him a single position.
Hmm.
You know, if Auburn had a defensive tackle that they could have played next to him that was up to that level, there's no way they wouldn't have done it. Because if he shows you the year before he can get 11 sacks,
Hmm.
why are we still playing around with even moving him to defensive tackle? Because
Right.
11 sacks is premier outside rush guy.
Yeah. Yeah. At the Southeastern Conference too. The
Exactly. Yeah.
yeah. Listen, I think I'd rather put him at edge, unless the team that he goes to just kind of has the edges covered, and then you can put him back at defensive tackle working with somebody good. But I do think you made a really good key there. He doesn't have a single attribute, one single superpower that says top 10, top 15 guy. There's just a lot there to like. If he were splitting double teams more from the edge position or from defensive tackle, I would be top 10 lock, but he's not. If he were shedding the blocks more,
Mm-hmm.
instead of getting locked up on occasion, then I would be, you know, top 8 lock, top 5 lock, but he's not. And that's what for me is pulling him back a little bit there. So we'll see if that's something he can develop. He's got it within him to develop into a force, and he has been a force, but it hasn't been a nonstop force. So Shane, I've enjoyed it, man. Thank you very much. Everybody, thank y'all
Thank you
for
as always,
watching.
Ben.
We've enjoyed it. That's Keldric Faulk from Auburn. We've got more prospects coming. Check it out on both Box Score Network and Pro Football Enterprises. We've got plenty of prospects, and they're all very detailed. All right, we try to get through a lot in a short period of time, but they're very detailed between usually three of us, but tonight two of us. We don't miss too much. All right, so if you've been studying the film out there and you've seen something else in addition, drop it in the comments. It's totally awesome. We would enjoy that, but want to give you a pretty good feel for these players. So, all right, everybody, that is Keldric Faulk from Auburn. Have a great one. Goodbye.